I'm about to share with you the single biggest mistake that anglers make. Can you guess what it is? G'day, Starlo here. I've escaped the office after a fairly long day at the computer editing video, and I've shot down the beach for a bit of a fish. Far from ideal conditions. The tide's wrong, it's raining on and off, and there's a really big sea running, and I hate that. I'll be very surprised if I catch anything, but I'll be honest with you, I had an ulterior motive for coming out this afternoon. I want to share with you what I regard as one of the biggest mistakes that many anglers make when they go fishing. I bet you're already having a guess at what it is. Tying bad knots, not using sharp hooks, not reacting when a fish strikes. Look, those are all mistakes, but I don't think you'll guess this one. And yet I reckon it's one of the biggest problems that I see amongst anglers. You watch and tell me if you agree. Ooh, that doesn't look good out there.
I really don't like this big ground swell and shore dump. I've never fared well in these conditions, but I'll give it a go. I'm bait fishing this afternoon using pilchards on a 2-hook rig. I start by breaking off the front third of the pilly. I'll keep that bit to use as bait or burley later on. Now I pin the bottom hook through the bait first, making sure to keep the hook's curb or offset facing up. Then I wrap the link between the 2 hooks once around the bait and insert the top hook. Then, and this is really important, I take a half hitch of leader around the bait's tail, making sure it's above the hook. Straighten it out so it doesn't spin, and I'm in business. The rig itself is a simple enough running sinker setup. I've got about a 30 or 40 gram bean sinker running freely on my rod length of leader down to a swivel, with a small bead to protect the knot. Then it's 40 centimetres or so to my hooks, with a little float bead on there to both lift the bait and work as an attractor. Check the drag, and it's time to fish. The tide's falling, and as it does, the swell is clearly breaking on this shallower sandbar offshore. But there's a slightly deeper gutter closer to the beach, identified by this unbroken green water. That's where I'll aim my bait. I wait a bit for a lull between bigger sets of waves so that I can move down and make my cast. No point getting wet yet. That's about where I want my rig to end up. No need for a big heave-ho, which is likely to damage the baits. A nice smooth cast does the job. My rig landed about here. I make contact with the rig and walk back a little bit to keep a tight line. There's a lot of wash and current out there, which is making it hard. After just a minute or two, I feel a slow, heavy weight coming onto the line. Interesting.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. What have I got? Oh, I don't like the feel of this. It's slow and heavy. Might be a ray or something. And it was a big lump of kelp, or seaweed. Yeah, it felt like a fish, or it felt like some kind of critter anyway.
One of the few drawbacks of using braid in the surf is the way that it tends to wrap around and cut into drifting weed.
Not what I was after.
But luckily I'm able to unpick it.
Alright, well, with the kelp weed out of my line, I can still see that I definitely had a couple of bites. A fair bit of pilchard's gone, and there's some tooth marks on what's left. Oh, that's promising. Well, as I anticipated, conditions are awful. I very much doubt that I'm going to catch anything. I'll give it a couple more casts. It was worth coming out to get a bit of salt air in my lungs. But I've kept you in suspense long enough. I'll tell you what I reckon that biggest mistake the fishermen make is. Have you guessed yet? It's all about where they wind their rigs up to, their baits, their lures, when they bring them in to do anything to them. And far too many people wind everything right up to the rod tip. When they do that, what they've got to do is put the rod down and walk to the end to find the rig. Guess what's happening to the reel back there when I do that? Ends up in the sand. That's just one of the problems. The other thing that they'll do is wind it up there somewhere and then reach up and try and pull the rig down. Really dangerous. You're holding a hook there. You've now got a loaded rod. Make the slightest mistake and that hook is going to end up in your hand. When you want to deal with your rig, just wind it to where you can swing it straight into yourself like that. I've got a little bit of weed on there. I can pull that off. I can check that the hooks are okay, all with my rod tucked under my arm here. Then swing it out, wind it back up to where I want to cast it from, and away I go. But if I start off with it up there, I can't reach it, put the reel down, walk to the end, do the rigging, pick the rod up, walk back to the end, and I see people doing it all the time. And the longer the rod, the bigger the problem it is. But even with a 6 or 7 foot rod, it's an issue, because if your rig is 6 or 7 feet, 2 meters away from you, there's no way you can reach it. Just get into that habit. Stop winding, swing your rig up to yourself, work on it. Put another bait on, do whatever you want to do, swing it out, wind it up, and then cast. Look, it's a really simple thing, but you'd be amazed how many people get it wrong. And it seriously is the single biggest mistake I see anglers make. Don't do it. All right. Oh, I just saw something out there then. That was a bit interesting. It's a bit of floating weed. I got a bit excited there for a minute, thought it might have been a shark fin. All right, I'm going to keep having a go. I don't like my chances of catching anything, but I want you to go away and think about that simple tip that I just shared with you. I guarantee it'll make a big difference to your fishing.
I'm not beaten yet. Despite the swell, the rain and the drifting seaweed, I'm going to give it another crack. I really don't want to go home empty-handed if I can avoid it. There's got to be something out there besides weed. This time, as well as walking back to keep a tight line, I'm shuffling to my right to keep up with the rig as it drifts south in the strong current. This is important and will help prevent the line from quickly washing back up onto the beach. Oh, I reckon I just had a bite. Yep, that's another bite for sure.
Whoa, got one. Not real big, but whoa, what have we got? Ha, I'm happy with anything in these conditions.
Wow, that surge and backwash is strong. Use the waves.
Especially important to use the waves today. And it's a brim. Look at that.
Notice where I wind the line to?
Well and truly legal too. I won't keep it though, it's only lightly hooked. I don't mind these nice clean silvery brim off the beach to eat. But I prefer them a little bit bigger than that. You don't get a lot of flesh yield off them at that size. He's probably about, actually he'd be about 29 centimetres long probably. Well over the 25 anyway. But I'll put him back, hopefully. Might be a few more there. Maybe these stirred up conditions have brought them in. All right, I'll wait for the wave. And see where my rig is again? Down here where I can work on it. It's also really important when you've got a fish on to not wind it up to the rod tip. Another thing that I see far too many people doing.
All right, let's get another bait out there. Strike while the iron's hot. Maybe there's a school of bream in the gutter.
So when I cast my rig, I'm going to have it hanging about that far from the tip. But there's no way I can get to it now to do anything to it. So by just dropping it down a bit further and swinging it in here, I can make sure everything's shipshape, then wind it back up to that casting position, and away we go. Oh my gosh, this water here at the edge looks like a protein shake. It's got this green foam on it. It's so stirred up and it's been smashing up all the weed. The sea's actually dropping at the moment. It's been a fair bit bigger than this, but it's still too big for comfortable fishing. Anyway, I'll give it a go.
Again, just a nice smooth cast out into the gutter. No need to punch holes in the horizon. I reckon a lot of people cast over the best fish in the surf. In fact, I made a whole episode about exactly that, and you can watch it later if you like. I'm getting bites.
Oh, oh, they were good bites. Wonder if there's any bait left. Oh yeah, another bite. Oh. Can't be any bait left now, surely. The fact that he hasn't come back would tend to indicate I've been baited. Just give it a couple of seconds longer. Oh, he did come back. He did come back. Oh, there was a bit of bait left on those hooks, so it was a good thing that I gave it a couple more seconds. If I'd pulled it in to check it, I wouldn't have hooked this fish. Oh, this is a better fish. Oh, this is surprisingly good fishing for the conditions. Oh. Use the wave. Okay, bring him up, bring him up, bring him up. I've got a bit of weed on the line too. Need to be aware of that. What have we got? It's another bream, I think. Yeah, a little bit bigger. Not much bigger though.
You've got to be a bit careful about turning your back on the surf.
Oh! Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, got a bit of a saltwater enema then. Oh dear. Oh, that's quite a nice bream. And see where I am? Again, I haven't wound it right up to the rod tip or a metre from the rod tip. I've got 3 metres, 3.5 metres of line out from the rod tip so that I can deal with the fish. That's a really nice bream actually. We'll see where the hook is. He's bleeding a little bit. I think we might keep this one. Yeah. He's got it down a bit. Got the top hook down. Wow. And he's milting too. It's a male yellowfin bream milting in November. That sort of goes against the textbooks which say that they tend to spawn along the beaches in March, April into May. It's now almost November and that one is a male, definitely spawn ready. All right, I'll go and kill it and bleed it and that'll be really tasty.
Oh well, that's dinner sorted. I wonder if I can add to it despite the ordinary conditions. It's definitely not getting any nicer here. In fact, the nor'easter is strengthening and those rain showers are coming more regularly. It's not particularly pleasant at all. Lots of these guys are washing up on the beach too, blue bottles. I need to be careful where I'm walking with bare feet. They'll give you a nasty sting if you step on one. No bites this time. Maybe the falling tide has pushed the bream out of the gutter. What's that? Doesn't feel like anything good. Not a fish, that's for sure. A bit more debris wrapped up in my braid. There's a fair bit of this stuff out there now.
It's really not very nice. The rain's getting heavier, the wind's picking up, there's a lot of weed out there. Not a lot of fun. I think I was pretty lucky to get a couple of fish. I'm going to cut my losses and head home. But I hope you take that tip on board and don't make that common mistake. Think about where you wind your rig to when you're going to rebait, sort out a tangle, get rid of some weed. It will make a massive difference to your fishing. It'll also improve your safety levels by not getting hooks in your hand, reaching up. Until next time, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines.
I hope you got something out of that, and if you did, please think about subscribing. And if you love your surf fishing as much as I do, check these other 2 episodes out. I'll catch you later. Cheers for now.